it has to do with the monetary policy, the value of the dollar, and of course tonight the other subject, I don't even think I had a question thrown at me on this, is why are the prices high? Well, I did get to mention a little bit, yes, it isn't so much just the prices, it's the deliberate depreciation of the dollar done through the Federal Reserve. And they're worried about the default. I did get a chance to mention the default. Our government defaults all the time. I mean, in the past it was with the gold. They promise to pay the gold and then they don't. That's a default. And right now they're worried. Oh, if we can't borrow more money and print more money, we'll default on the debt. Well, what do you do when you just print money? This is what they want to do. They want to default on the debt because we owe 14 trillion. If you can get the inflation machine really churning and the value of the dollar loses 50%, in real terms, the debt has gone down to $7 trillion. So this is their deliberate attempt, but they don't really care about the people who suffer, because the people who suffer are the ones who have higher prices, lose their jobs, lose their houses, and who are the beneficiaries? When they say we have to prevent the depression, it's the people who ripped us off during the bubble formation, and they get bailed out, the big corporations and the big banks, while the little people end up paying the higher prices. That is a message that we have to get across, because the crisis is going to come, it's going to get a lot worse, and we better win the fight, because if we don't win the fight for liberty, we're going to get something else. It's going in the wrong direction. It's an authoritarian approach, a man on a white horse that come in and they're going to take care of us. They're going to protect us by protecting our interests overseas, perpetual war, and have cradle-to-grave socialism. And if that happens, it's all at the expense of our liberties, and that's what freedom in our country is supposed to be all about. Right. There's, of course, been a lot of talk on foreign policy, and I did get a chance to talk about a very important issue. Now that Bin Laden is dead, we could go into the details of how proper that was. But the whole thing is, that's over and done with, and what we must do now is grab the attention and say, yes, you told us that's the reason we went over there. Both Iraq and Afghanistan was supposed to be going after Al-Qaeda. Well, the ringleaders are caught, the people who perpetrated the crime are dead. It's time to say that this nation really bring all the good people. For us to make the case that we should cut across the board, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to follow the Constitution and only have those issues that are authorized. But if we are going to have a chance to maybe work through the system, which I'm not predicting we will, there's no reason in the world why the country couldn't come to agreeing on all this overseas expenditures before cutting health care for children. I don't see the reason for starting on that. And then, of course, we should work our way out of it, but unfortunately the odds aren't very good. So our job is to decide what the role of government ought to be. The role of government should not be to police the world, it should not be to police your life, and it should not be to run the economy. The government our government is supposed to be very limited in scope. We're supposed to follow the rule of law. And under those circumstances, what we do is we release the creative energy of each and every one of us to assume responsibility for ourselves and to do the work that is necessary. If we depend on the government, they have nothing. Everything they get and want to give to somebody else, they have to steal it from somebody, and that's called taxation. Yes, sir. Of wealth. A lot of people on the receiving end right now are starting to wake up, and they're getting very, very worried, and they should be. But they're not worried the same way you are. You're worried because the government's just going to come down harder on you, invade your privacy, and take away more freedoms, and tax you more, and all this. But the others are worried about, well, where's the gravy train going to be? But if we can to work hard to convince everybody that it's in their interest, we will have a chance to restore our constitutional liberties here when the people believe it's in their best interest to do so. For so long, we've had this great prosperity because we've had a fair amount of freedom, and we still do have wealth in this country, which is rapidly shrinking. And if they recognize that the wealth is shrinking, we have to get them to understand that it's the government's fault. It's not the people's fault for this kind of a condition. But it's our responsibility to deal with the government. That means we have to change the government. We can't allow them to move in the wrong direction. Because even today, there are those in power who know exactly what we know about the financial monetary system, and they know a new monetary system is coming, and they're planning it. They're planning it to put it under the UN and the IMF and the World Bank. So that, of course, is the reason I've had a bill in for as long as I've been in Congress, and that is get out of all those entanglements, get out of the UN. That I've talked about for a long time, and I think it's so important, is to understand why we face this problem, why there's such division in Washington. It's because they have come to the conclusion that there's different types of liberty. If you talk about speech, you talk about political speech and commercial speech. Commercial speech you're allowed to regulate, but political speech you're not supposed to. Some people protect personal liberties, others protect economic liberties. It's one and the same because we're individuals. We're born with our right to life and right to liberty. We are born with our liberty. Those liberties come from our Creator or in the natural way. When government takes over to do these things that we're supposed to do for ourselves, they can't do it without undermining your personal liberty. What we need is a concept that liberty is individual. This is why I object to talking about people in a collective way. You have liberties because you belong to this group, and this group. You don't have liberties for that person, but you never should punish a group because they belong to a group. We should recognize the individuality of people. The other great thing about a freedom movement is it's based on nonviolence. You can't use violence to have your way, and the government shouldn't either. But the other thing is, for it to work, and I was challenged there tonight, you have to be tolerant of other people and how they live. You can object to it, you can not participate in it, you can teach your children, but you shouldn't be in the position where you say, I know what's best for you and I know how you're supposed to live. Doctor. That's one of the hardest things for a lot of people to do is to tolerate people who do things that they don't like. We do it pretty well with religion, except sometimes they want to blame the Islamic religion completely and totally instead of the few radical Islamists for their problems. So you can't give blanket accusations. And we shouldn't punish and we shouldn't reward people because they belong to a group. We deserve our liberties because we're an individual deserving that right, and that should be the purpose of government. We can close right now. I can close tonight by saying that I continue to be encouraged. Discouraged when I'm in Washington. I see the problems and the difficulty. It's disgusting about what's going on with these wars. Today, though, we've introduced legislation. There were 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats on the purpose of making it, bipartisan, and that is to force the administration to devise a plan to start coming home from Afghanistan. We see a lot of people who still think in leadership in both parties in Washington. They still support a lot of all this militarism and protecting our interests overseas. The one problem that we face, and I'm sure most of you understand this, is that the leadership and the parties seem to endorse those principles that we ascribe to. That is, Both parties endorse foreign intervention. Both parties endorse the Federal Reserve. Both parties endorse the entitlement system. Both parties don't care about us as individuals. So therefore, it is important to break loose from that, and we don't have to compromise in any way. I believe we have to stand firm, but I do believe that you can work with people. So if I can find 7 other Democrats and 7 Republicans can work together because they absolutely believe on principle and agree with us on that, we must do it. This is the exciting thing about the monetary issue. Nobody's addressed this before. We're making fantastic progress because of the work that you have done.
Because here, Ron!
Yes, sir!
Last go around, audit the Fed bill did get passed in the House. We had a lot of Democrats supporting it. Transparency is a good term to use both for Republicans and Democrats. We need a lot more transparency to know how they passed out those trillions of dollars to everybody. And believe me, I have a position now that's slightly better than it has been before in the subcommittee, and I will be doing my darndest to find out exactly what they've been doing for all these years. Advanced knowledge and communications, I think it's called the internet or something like that. And because of the education that's been going on and the determination and the growth of the numbers of people who are interested, it's just fantastic. So as long as I see that growth, I'm not going to be discouraged. So I'm going to do my very best, and I encourage you to take the responsibility upon yourself, because every one of us, you have more responsibility than anybody else. The majority of the people in all societies never get interested in issues. It's a small number of people who have to spread the word and lead the charge. So you have a responsibility, and don't ask me what you're supposed to do, because you've got to figure it out. If you're prepared, if you're prepared and know the answer, somebody will use you, there will be a job, and there will be something to do, because each and every one of us has that responsibility. I want to thank you very much for coming and hanging around tonight. I love being with you here.